Well, hello everyone. My name is Brian DiNapoli. I have a passion project called NIL Insight. I love sports, especially high school and college sports. And I started this website a couple years ago to provide resources for student athletes and parents on mental health, drug and alcohol prevention, player safety, financial resources, and other resources, including name, image, and likeness resources. So it's really a passion of mine. I'm a community coach, grew up in Atlanta, played soccer, and I'm currently coach kicking at a high school in Decatur. So I really enjoy that. And this is just my way of giving back to the community and relatively new at this. This is my second podcast. Very excited about our guest tonight. We met at a women's soccer game. Decatur actually has a women's professional soccer team or semi-pro team that played this summer, which is very cool. It's great to promote women's sports, and it's really growing. I knew they would do excellent. And I met Jacqui at this event. It was great. We chopped it up, talked for a while,
Yep.
and learned that she was named after a professional baseball player. So look forward. It's going to be cool to learn about that. Look forward to learning more about her. But we talked about her son was a student athlete at a HBCU in Atlanta. So just wanted to get her thoughts and insight on being a mom of a college athlete, which is so critical nowadays with NIL, which wasn't around, Jacqui, when you were
No.
a sports mom. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself. So how are you tonight, Jacqui? And tell us a
I
little about you.
I am outstanding. I think this is a great thing that you're doing, Brian. I think that NIL is such a huge thing now, and a lot of us really don't understand a whole lot of it. I know some people are against it. I know some people are for it, but I think this is a great thing because the more information that people have about NIL, maybe they'll become a little more receptive to it. My name is Jacqui Robinson, just like the baseball player. It's spelled a little different, but was not really actually named after a baseball player. How I got the name was my dad wanted to name me Ladybird. And my mother was like, absolutely not. You are not naming my child Ladybird. And so she named me Jacqueline Robinson. Of course, everyone says Jacqueline and they always say Jacqui. So I'm Jacqui Robinson. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to share about my son's experience with his football career.
That's awesome. So Jacqui, were you named after, I'm a political nut, so I assume they wanted to name you after Lady Bird.
Lady Bird Johnson.
Okay, that's very, very cool. Wow.
Lady Bird Johnson. That's where it was coming from. Lady Bird Johnson. And my mom was like, my daughter is not going to go through life being called Lady or Bird. So that is, but it's so funny because now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I wish you guys would have named me Lady Bird because it's so unique. I'm unique. So that would be perfect for me.
Yes, definitely. I love how your name is spelled. It's Jaqui.
Jacqui. So of course, it was always Jackie, but like I said, I think I'm unique. So I changed it to Jacqui.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's how I spell it, just to be different.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Can you touch on some of your work experience? I think we shared something immediately. I mentioned to you I was a probation officer right out of college. And it was an eye-opener for me. I grew up probably a sheltered kid, the youngest of my family, and I'm definitely a late bloomer. So it wasn't in the military for me, but it was great experience learning to deal with different difficult backgrounds and people. And so just learned a lot from them. So if you want to touch on that briefly before we get into your experience as a sports mom.
Sure, yes. So my career started in 1997 in law enforcement. I was a corrections officer for Metro State Prison. Metro State Prison is now closed down. But I started in 1997. I kind of fell into it because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm originally from California, and I moved here with this wild dream that I was going to have this great life. And actually, the cost of living was just really, really expensive where I was from. So, everybody's like, oh, move to Georgia, move to Atlanta, move to Atlanta. This is the place to be. So I came here. So I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I was a receptionist in a hair salon. And I saw a young lady come in with this like corrections type uniform on. And so I asked her where she worked, and she told me, City of Atlanta Corrections. And I was like, okay. She's like, we make great money. And I was like, really? So I went to go apply for the job, but they had a hiring period. and I just missed the hiring period by like a week. And so the background and recruiting guy was like, hey, why don't you get some experience at in the prison system? And then when we open hiring back up, you can try to apply again. So I did, and I applied to Metro State Prison. It was my first law enforcement. I had to go down to Forsyth for training for like 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. We lived down there, learned the basic stuff. And that was the time where I met, like you said, so many different personalities. Like I didn't know, I never saw anybody chew tobacco before. I didn't know anything about shining boots. I didn't know, and it was a lot of Southern drawl, a lot of, we had people from Calhoun, Georgia, Waycross, Georgia, Valdosta, Georgia, just all over the place. And they bring us all together to do this training. So that started in 97. And after that, I moved to the City of Atlanta Corrections. So I did end up going there for a couple years. We got laid off when Shirley Franklin came in, the mayor. Politics is a big thing. And so they didn't need all of us at that jail at the time. So they laid off a bunch of us. I did a short stay at the Sheriff's Department. And then I left the Sheriff's Department. I went to MARTA Police, and I started that in 2003. And I actually got bored. I wanted to be like the real police. So not that MARTA is not a real police agency, because it is a real police agency, but the action I was seeking, you're definitely not going to get at MARTA. So I left MARTA and I went to a larger police department. I've been there most of my career. And a couple years ago, I decided to do a lateral transfer to the DA's office in that county. And I've been there ever since. So I'm on year like maybe 3, I think it is, that I've been over there, and I'm loving it. So I think that I can finish the rest of my career there. So I have a very long and extensive law enforcement career.
That's awesome, Jacqui. And it sounds like they're very lucky to have you. And I mentioned as an officer, I really learned that they set unfair conditions a lot of times on individuals that just didn't have the background, or they just didn't have the experience, work experience, and things like that, treatment. But now they're doing a much better job of meeting them where they're at and helping them. So it really has been a
They do.
paradigm shift. So it's really great to see that. And they have some very unique programs in Atlanta that are helping our justice impacted citizens.
Absolutely. I have seen a big change from when I did start my career to what it is now. Actually, what I will say, when I first started policing, there were a lot of facilities for people who were suffering with mental health and mental illness and things like that, but they were state funded facilities, and they slowly started to close. And that left a lot of that population out in the streets for law enforcement to deal with, who wasn't trained to deal with things like that. But over the years, we have crisis intervention training and things like that. So we're more aware of what mental health and what mental illness is. We just really did not know. We just did not know. We categorize these people as they're just homeless, they're just on drugs, they just don't want help, they just don't. We never really took into account what mental health and mental illness is until, within the last, I'll give it maybe 10, but that might not even be giving it justice, maybe 8, 7 years. We're really starting to have more things available for these people. So I am seeing the change, and I'm really embracing that. And that's what also led me into mental health advocacy as well.
No, excellent. A great segue. And I agree, it's changing. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. And
Absolutely.
especially with COVID, that just ramped everything up again. So we
Absolutely.
can touch on that. Can you share your experiences of being a sports mom?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a mom. I have 5 kids. They range from ages 34 down to 16. So they're 34, 26, 25, 25, and 16. And so all of my kids play sports. But my son, my 25-year-old son, who I put him in sports because he was always getting in trouble. He was like a busybody. It was always something going on with this kid. So someone said, hey, why don't you put him in football so he can get a little structure? So I put him in football, and he ended up, at first, of course, he didn't like it at first, but quickly learned where he fit in and fell in love with the sport. Like I couldn't I couldn't keep them away from the sport. And so, but my older kids, they played sports as well. My youngest is a cheerleader and she does plan on cheering in college. But with him, football drove it. As a matter of fact, this kid told me one time when he went to college that if he couldn't play football, that he probably wouldn't even go to school. That's how much this kid loved playing football. And I watched him, as a younger kid, he was bigger than everyone. He was big, he was tall, and they put him in a defensive end position. So he mastered the DN position. And he loved that position. What happened was, as you know, DNs are typically 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". Well, my son stopped growing at 6 feet. But he just would not change that position. And he just constantly wanted to be in that position. So I watched him, struggle in that position all the way through high school. The growth spurts for the other kids started happening about, 9th and 10th grade, where he was no longer the biggest kid. And not just that, he was really good. He was really, really good in that position. I mean, he played on teams that went to like the Frank Ski Bowl and things like that. And he did it all the way through, I think, the 8th or 9th grade. He played on this little league team, and these kids never lost. These kids traveled. They never lost. So these kids had a lot of expectation when they got to high school and saw that things are not the same as little league high school. And so when he was in high school, he still was pretty good, and he still got to play that DN and that middle linebacker position. The speed wasn't there, his speed was not the best. So you start realizing in high school that you may be pretty good, but you may not be the best, right? But you're still good. You're still good enough to be on the team. You're still good enough to play. You're going to get playing time. And he still loved it. He ended up going to college to play football. He was one of those kids who, and this is one thing that irritates me about some of the kids, is that you think that the only school to go to is a D1 school. Forget all the other schools. I have to go to a D1 school. And I get that most kids do strive for D1, but everyone isn't D1. And what I was trying to explain to him, when he was choosing these schools that I was not agreeing with, that do you want to play or do you just want to be on the team? Because when you get to a D1 school, you're talking about the top 5% in the country. These kids at UGA, these kids at Colorado, these kids, all these SEC teams, definitely the SEC, these kids are the top 5%. And some of the top 5% is on the bench because the top 1% and 2% is who's playing. But he couldn't grasp it. He just wanted to be able to say, I'm at a D1 school. So he did go to one, and it did not work out. He never played. And so he finally was starting to listen and decided, okay, I'm going to come back home and I'm going to go to one of the local HBCUs and I'm going to play. The coach loved him. Coach wanted him, and coach put him on the team. And everything was great at first. And things began to change when the coach left. And one thing I learned about coaches is that it's not like Little League, where I can go up to the school and fuss at the coach and let my son play. My son is here because my son, you said blah, 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 blah. You didn't say anything about these coach changes and things like that. And what happened was, and I literally watched this kid every game. I try to go to every game. And this kid was sad every game. It's heartbreaking because this coach left. And when coaches leave and new coaches come in, they like to bring in their own. And some of these kids don't have an opportunity to go to other schools. You just can't pick up and follow that coach, that one that wanted you. You have to stay rooted. And, I had to explain to my son at the end of the day, I'm just going to be honest. You're not going to the pros. So your goal is to get a degree. You're supposed to get the degree. But he knew that, but his heart was, I just want to play. I just want to play. I just want to play. And when I would watch those last 3 years of him riding that bench, it was just heartbreaking because I know how desperately this kid wanted to play. But I had to keep telling him, you're here for education. If you were going to the pros, that would be something different. But you're not. You're not, son. You're not breaking records. You're not getting an NIL check. You're not getting that. You're not breaking records at this school. These coaches are swapping out every year, and every year they're bringing, they make these promises, this man down, you're up. You're never up because they have brought in all of their own people. Their goal is to win. They have to win for the school so they can keep their job.
That's right. Yeah.
So they can keep their job. I mean, this is a game. At the end of the day, this is someone's paycheck, and this is a game, and what they want to do is win. And unfortunately, it's not Little League where we got to play all the players because mama paid her money. Now, mama is paying her money, but she's not paying for you to go to school, for you to play football. She's paying for you to get an education. So you're getting passed up on scholarship money. So now you're just on the team. You're actually a practice dummy. You're there for practice. They wear you out in practice. They make all these promises because they don't want you to quit. But yet every game you never play. You never touch the field. Never touch the field. And it was sad because I knew this was something that he just loved so much. He just loved it so much. And he wrote it out. He finally said his senior year, I'm just going to stay on the team so I can stay in shape. I enjoy being with my teammates, and I'm just going to ride it out. And it took like 4 years for him to get that concept. It took 4 years. He's graduated now. He's, in his career and things like that. Thank goodness we don't have any, because he stayed on defense. We don't have any concussions or head traumas and that was another concern. I'm like, boy, you're out here getting hit like this in practice and stuff. I mean, we want to at least save your brain, save your head. You don't have to take these hits. You don't have to do this. But he wanted to, and I let him. There was a guy who told me my son's going to be a veterinarian. And this guy told me one day, he came over, he was hauling junk for me. And I was telling him about my son and how frustrated I was that he continues being so loyal to this football program that's not loyal to you. And so this guy said, let me tell you something. If that football team is keeping him in work study, keeping him in shape, keeping him disciplined, you know where he is all the time because he's at practice or sleep. If it's getting him, keeping him in school, he can be a veterinarian until he's 80 years old, but he can only play football till he's 21, 22 years old. And I was like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely correct. And so when my son finally realized I'm just on the team and I'm okay with it, I became okay with it. And especially after that guy told me, hey, your son could be a veterinarian till he's 80. He could do this till he's 80. But I know that messed with him mentally. All 5 years of college. I know that took a toll on him. Can you imagine being a superstar your whole life? Your whole life. You're a star. And then you finally get thrown into a group where everybody's the star. Everybody.
That's right.
Like everybody's the star. Everybody's the star. Can you imagine? So stressful. These kids, I think that athletics puts a lot of stress on kids. It is a lot. especially kids who feel if I can make it, if I can make it, I'm going to be able to take care of my family for the rest of their lives if I can make it. What, who put that responsibility on a 17, 18-year-old kid? Who gave them that responsibility? That if you make it, that you were going to take care of us for the rest of your life? That's not your job.
No, that's right. I'm all for these students making money because like you said earlier, yeah, here's the NCAA was making billions, the coaches millions, and the players were getting nothing. But then with this NIL, it does cause all those issues. So was NIL, it wasn't around when he was playing.
No, I think it was just starting. It was just starting to come around. And he was at a school, I think maybe one kid went to Baltimore. He was recruited to Baltimore, but I haven't seen him play. Like, I know I think he's on the team still, maybe. But he may have been one kid out of that school who was getting that NIL, possibly. The HBCUs here are in the MEAC or the SWAC conference, one of the two. You don't really hear a lot of kids in MEAC and SWAC getting a whole lot of NIL, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Jackson State or something like that. Especially when Coach Prime was there. But Coach Prime took his whole team.
Yeah, he did. Now you mentioned the transfer portal and all that, but well, kudos to your son though for making it to that college level because that's again less than 5% of the players making it. And I always love this quote that football doesn't teach character, it reveals it. So that was a great analogy the gentleman told you that he was able to use this to become a better student, a better eventually husband, just a better everything, a better employee. I think it taught that discipline. So is he currently a veterinarian or he's in vet school now?
So he is a vet tech at UGA Veterinary Hospital, and he's still teeter-tottering on when he wants to go back to get his medical stuff done. He's enjoying what he's doing right now. And so he's enjoying it. I don't know when he's going to go to medical school, even if he's going to go to medical school. That option is there for him if he wants to do it. But right now he's loving what he's doing. He sends me the craziest pictures of the craziest. People bring every animal to the vet.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah, I'm a bulldog, so I know UGA has a great vet school. So he
Yes.
couldn't be in a better place. So Athens is a great community also.
Yes, he loves it. He loves who he's working with. He gets the opportunity to work with, like I said, there's alpacas, there's cats and dogs, birds. I've seen an owl, I've seen a deer, he sends pictures of all kind of everything. People bring when it's kind of like the Grady Hospital for animals.
Okay, that's
if
a good
your
way to say
animal is that sick, take it to UGA Vet Hospital because they will bring your baby back to life.
That's awesome. That's a great shout out. And I heard on a podcast that football also teaches players to have, heart, grit, and being curious, having heart, loving your teammates, grit, overcoming adversity, curious, of course, always getting better. I'm always about getting 1% better. So it sounds like he really has done all three of those things after graduation.
He has. I mean, I'm saying, like I said, he was introduced to football because he was the worst. Like the kid stayed in trouble, always in trouble, all over the place. And you would think, last with your mom in law enforcement, that you would act right, but no. I introduced him to football for the discipline and structure, and he learned it as a kid. He learned it at 6, 7, 8 years old, and he loved the sport. If I told the kid that he couldn't play that weekend, oh, it was an issue. I mean, he really loved his teammates. He has a lot of character. So you got to learn and be around kids who are not like you. Some are like you and some are not. So you have to learn how to deal with different personalities, different attitudes, different coaching styles, different, just you just had to learn, overcome and adapt to so many different things. And that was through sports. That was all through sports. I'm a big advocate for kids playing sports. Occupy your time with some sort of activity. Um, it doesn't have to be football. I mean, right now I got a grandson who is playing football, and I'm like, I'm hoping that he says that this is his last year and he picks a different sport. But I don't know because they got him playing both ways and he's loving it. So I don't know if we're going to be able to stop him from playing football. But football was a lifesaver for us. I mean, it for him. One thing about football, you know, you had to be accountable. You had to maintain grades your whole time. You had to maintain a certain GPA in order to play. These kids in college, they have study hall. So you have to maintain to stay in school in order to play, or in order to just keep your scholarship, or even to keep your partial scholarship. You have to have that discipline. So when all of your friends are like, hey, we're about to go to this party, but you have a paper due, you got to decide. You got to
That's right.
decide what you want to do.
And if he goes to vet school, all that discipline, all that will help. And that's why I think student athletes make great employees. They really do. And I'll give a rare shout out to Georgia Tech, their former coach, Bill Curry. He calls it the huddle. You know, you have different, like you said, nationalities, personalities, races, but you're all one, you're one family. And that just teaches so much, just how to be a better person, really. As
Yeah.
someone else said, your best players have to be your best people. So it
Yeah.
sounds like, he did what he had to do, and, he helped the team.
He
I
did.
was thinking he probably would be a great coach as he thought about coaching.
You know, and for a period of time, he thought about going into teaching. Actually, before he decided to do the veterinary route, he did say at one point he wanted to be a teacher. I think he would be an excellent coach. He's still fit. He still works out. He still loves football. We're Raider fans. We are from California, even though they're in Las Vegas. We are Raider fans. He's from Georgia, so he likes UGA, of course. I'm on that. I'm a UCLA person,
Okay. That's all right. Yeah, I like West Coast football.
So he would be a great coach because for one, he understands and he has the experience to let you know, hey, get your grades. At the end of the day, get your grades first. Get your education. Get your education. Use this to help you get your education. It gives you good discipline and good study habits and things like that. You may not go to the pros. You may not. You never know. You might, but you may not. But if you don't, what are you going to do when this is over? What are you going to do when this is over? Regardless if it's football or basketball or baseball or softball, soccer, whatever sport you choose, everyone learns a lot of discipline in those sports. You have to be a disciplined individual in order to make. I did sports when I was a kid too. You have to maintain your education in order to be able to participate in those things that you desire to do. So yeah, I think he would be a great coach.
Yeah, absolutely. You should plant that seed for him for certain. And what suggestions do you have to improve the experience of student athletes and their families?
To improve the experience.
Just around mental health and drug and alcohol prevention. Do you think there's an
Yeah.
allure of drugs and alcohol for players? Just the stress release or
Yes.
pain management, those type things.
Yes. So I think that athletes also have to be careful because they are able to become addicted to certain things when they don't have to be. Especially more than likely, it's going to start with pain management. It's always going to start with pain management. Everyone wants to play. And everyone wants to do what they need to do to get through the pain to play. And they have to be careful with that. You have to be careful with prescription medication, especially now doctors are starting to, they'll cut you off your pain medication. And students are going out to find illegal medication. But this fentanyl, it'll kill you. It will kill you. It will kill you. And just for that one moment, and some of these kids, they're taking Xanax and things like that, things to help them stay awake because they're not managing time. You have these assignments due, but you're also committed to this athletic thing that you're doing. It can be exhausting. So you're taking things to help you stay awake. You're taking things to, keep you going. That is something that will definitely, it will definitely mess you up in the future. Now, one thing I will say also, these athletes have to understand, and parents have to recognize when your kid is suffering mentally, like this is too much. Sometimes you got to take a break, and it's okay. It's okay. They need to recognize my body is not responding the way it needs to. I'm starting to become overwhelmed, stressed out. I'm having anxiety and panic attacks. I can't sleep. I'm not eating right. Those are all signs of something bigger. And then you need to recognize it and deal with it. Everything doesn't require a pill. It doesn't necessarily mean, oh my God, I'm going through this now, I need medication. There's nothing wrong with medication, of course, but you need to be able to recognize, hey, I'm off. Things are off. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I'm anxious. I'm having nightmares. I'm whatever it is. You need to recognize it. And parents, one thing about me, I always told my kids, I sent 3 kids to college at one time. One of my sons is a lot older. I sent 3 to college at one time. And the rule was my phone needs to ring every Sunday. Every Sunday, my phone needs to ring or I'm showing up. And you don't want me to show up. So every Sunday, you need to make my phone ring. And I changed. I was an Android person. I changed to an iPhone because back then, they didn't really have FaceTime. So I got the iPhone so I can FaceTime with the kids because I want to look at you.
Yep.
And I want to see you. Now I'm expecting you to be a college student. I'm expecting you to party and have fun and be tired. I got that part. Been there, done that. I understand it. But I need to look at you because I need to see, hey, what's your hair looking like? Is are you maintaining your, I have some very vain looking children. So, are you maintaining your hair? Are you getting your hair cut? Is your facial hair all over the place? Are your eyes extremely red? Or do you have bags under your eyes? I just need to look at you and see physically how you're doing. And so I tell parents, you got to stay involved. Yes, you've created little adults, but they're really still your broke best friends. The kids don't have any money. It's your money.
It's a great way to put it.
Those are your broke besties. Yeah, those are your broke besties. So they're kind of feeling their way a little bit into adulthood, but they're not completely there. So you got to kind of still put your hands on them a little bit to see, hey, is everything going okay? And do a checkup. How's everything going? How are your classes going? What are your grades looking like? Oh yeah, I remember you telling me last week that this professor is giving you a hard time. Were you guys able to work that out? How's your coach? How do you like your new coach? How do you like your new offensive coordinator coach? Is everything going good with them? Do you have a good relationship with them? How are your teammates? How is your roommate? How's your roommates doing? Have you checked on your roommates? They do good? You guys have food? Are y'all eating? Are you guys meal prepping? What's going on? And then, it doesn't always have to be, how was the party? Did you drink too much? Now let me tell you about these drugs out here. Just kind of keep that relationship and that door open with them so they know, hey, if something is not right, I can always, call my parents. And they're not going to feel so disappointed that, maybe I need to sit out a semester. It happens. Life isn't over because you sat out a semester. Do you know how many semesters I sat out before I got my degree? A whole bunch of them, because I started in school at 18, but I didn't get a degree till I was in my 40s. So it's a lot of semesters I sat out. So, it's okay. It is okay. We don't have to put that pressure on those kids to make them feel like they're going to look like a failure if things are starting to happen with them mentally. You gotta stay with them. You gotta help them out and let them know, hey, it's okay. It's all good. Come home, take the semester off. I got you. If you're ready to go back, maybe the school is too big and too much. Maybe the demands are too great. We don't have to do this. We can go to a junior college right around the corner if you want to. You can go to technical school. You don't have to, accrue all of this debt if you don't want to. You don't have to do this. It's not for me. This education is yours. It's not mine. It's yours. And whatever path you want to take to get it, it's okay.
Yeah, that's right, Jacqui. Well, thank you for touching on all those subjects. Really, you'd be a great general manager. You really would, because you're touching on all of that, but you're definitely right about that fentanyl. It's poison. It really is. I mean, almost half the counterfeit pills out there have fentanyl in them, and it's like playing Russian roulette. It really
And you,
is.
you don't know what you're going to get. It's not worth it. It's just, dang, it's just not freaking worth it, man. It's not worth it. It's
No, the
not
high
worth
school I went to in DeKalb County, a girl about 6 months ago died in class taking she thought it was a Percocet, it was laced with fentanyl.
and
And just she was, collapsed in her chair and they thought she was sleeping. So it just happens all the time. Yeah, you know a lot better than I do, but I know about what's going on. But you're right about football. It's a great game. Someone said basketball is a contact sport, but football is a collision sport. So it takes that wear and tear on your body. And you're right about that, Jacqui. I don't think there's enough emphasis on preventing drug and alcohol abuse with these athletes. It's really not touched on. Mental health, they're starting to talk about it more. But talking about your school, UCLA, here they're going to the Big Ten, which is completely whacked. What's the travel going to be, let's say, for women's softball going from California to Ohio, right, on a
a
Tuesday?
lot. That's a lot.
So all that because of money. And then I love college football, can't wait for it. Probably the biggest Bulldog fan, but you're adding so many more games. It's almost like an NFL schedule. So the mental health, the physical toll on this.
You have to
So I'm all for
maintain,
them making money and transferring, because these coaches, like you said, can transfer whenever they want.
transfer whenever they want. And I'm okay, what I don't like is I don't like to see kids go from school to school to school to school because they're not getting what they want. At the end of the day, like I said, it's only a small percentage of kids that are going to make it to the big league. Everyone is not going to the NBA draft. Everyone is not going to the NFL draft. Everyone's not going to make it to the combines. It's a small percentage who gets to do that. And if you are that kid who knows that you're there for tuition purposes, ride that thing out. Ride it out, keep your scholarship, do what you need to do, graduate, and go live your best life. Go live your best life. I don't like to see kids go from school to school to school to school because they're not getting the playing time that they wanted. It's always a kid better than you.
Right.
And mental health is extremely important. And what I like about the younger generation, my generation didn't deal with no mental health. My generation was suck it up. You good, you fine, go on and suck it up. You fine. But the younger generation, what I like is that they do recognize it a little bit more than we do. And deal with it, a little bit more than we do. But drugs and alcohol is something that they really, 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 granted, yes, there was plenty of drugs and alcohol when I was in school. That's always a thing, right? You don't have your mama there to tell you to be in your room at 11 o'clock, right? You got freedom.
That's right. Yeah.
You got freedom. The freedom is there, and after you realize, my mama's not going to call me, or I've already talked to her tonight, and my dad, and I'm not going to talk to my parents anymore. I'm free and I can do whatever I want to do. You have to recognize bad situations when you're in them, or before you even get in them, because some of these situations where you're drinking to oblivion, you might not come back from that.
That's right.
Your
And
body.
that's what I did, honestly, Jackie. I had a problem with it. It escalated at UGA. Fortunately, I was able to graduate, but I laid it down and haven't turned back. And I try to tell my testimony to other college students, young college students. Hopefully, they won't make the same mistakes as me. And I do have a friend. She started a company called Success Beyond Game Day. Former D1 athlete, got hurt, thought she was going to play in the pros. But what she does is help these student athletes leverage their experience, like your son, learned all that discipline. They really make excellent entrepreneurs. I want to
Absolutely.
say Enterprise Rental Car, they hire student athletes because you have to multitask and deal with a lot of different people. So they really can do excellent things. And look at all these pro athletes doing awesome things like LeBron and Curry. I'll
Oh,
even give
absolutely.
Brady a shout out, all those. So that, but you're right, that's the one top 1%.
So
So what
it's,
did the remainder do?
yeah, and you got to remember also, and you might be a top 1%, but let's say you go in there and you get this injury that you can't recover from. What's his name? Lamar Hamlin. What's his name? The guy who played for
Yeah,
Buffalo.
Lamar, yeah, he had his heart stopped. Yeah, he came back, which is a miracle.
He came back, but I don't think he's playing now.
Well, he did last year, but I'm not sure about this year. But I'm thinking, being a Bulldog. David Pollock was a first round pick, was an All Pro. Then he almost became paralyzed. He had a serious neck injury, but now he had a career in broadcasting. But now he's doing motivational speaking. So
Yeah,
he's one to turn. He said actually that was probably the best thing that happened to him, because no telling what would happen, the lifestyle he would have led if he would have had more millions and everything. So
yeah,
I was just thinking that with your son, perhaps it was a blessing in disguise if he becomes a vet or whatever he becomes. He's just going to be better at it for being an athlete.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I agree. So
Now that's awesome. So tell us about your current podcast. I know you have a lot going on. It sounds like
yeah,
you probably, I was meant to ask you if you've written a book. You definitely could. You have so much wisdom. And I can listen to you for hours. I listened to one of your podcasts about men dealing with mental health, which was very
yes.
impactful.
I
So
love
before we
what.
close out, tell us how the listeners can find your podcast.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so I'm in this mental health space now. I have a daughter who has a schizophrenia and bipolar, and this is how I was introduced, really, really introduced to mental health. I shared her story on a Facebook Live, and then people started to reach out to me and share their experiences with mental health. I had absolutely no idea. So many people have an experience, whether it's with their own child, whether it's with themselves, whether it's a parent. Um, I had no idea. I had no idea. So I created this podcast. It's called Mission for Mental Health. I'm live every Wednesday night on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And all my handles are Mission for Mental Health. And yeah, so this space has really been eye-opening for me, learning so many stories about people. The reason why I decided to do the show is once like I said, I did share my story and I saw how many people resonate with my own story. I figured that, well, let's put it like this. There was two very close people in my life, two of my very close friends who had children who had mental health. And when they would call me and tell me about their kids, I would say in my head, damn, I'm so glad I don't have to go through that. Ooh, glad I don't have to go through that. And then it ended up happening to me. And so I wanted people to see that mental health can affect anyone, anywhere, anytime. There's no prototype for it. There's no billboard for it. It can come to anybody. It can come in anybody's life. And so I wanted people to hear stories on like people like me who has a daughter with schizophrenia, but we're still here. We're still making it. We're still surviving. We're still living with this. Is it easy? No, it is not. It is very challenging. It's probably one of the biggest challenges I've ever received in my life. But are we living with it? Absolutely. Can other people live with it? Absolutely. Can I do it on my own? No, I cannot. I cannot. I tell when I first started my podcast, a young lady was telling me I was procrastinating starting it because I was scared, I was nervous. And she told me the longer I hold back from sharing my story with other people, the longer I'm not allowing people to receive healing or a blessing, because healing is in the conversations. And when she said healing is in the conversations, it kind of threw me like, wow, healing is in the conversation. I found that the more I share, the more I share my story with people and people share with me, there's some kind of healing in that process that we know you're not by yourself. It's not just you. You're not by yourself in this thing. So I bring different guests on, like you said, you saw. I love when I can get a guy to come on and share, because men are so, I won't talk about that, but I love when I can get guys on there, because I want other men to see it's okay. If the doctor told you that you had diabetes and the only way that you can live is to give yourself this insulin shot every day, you will give yourself that shot. You won't go get a second opinion. You won't change your diet. You won't exercise. You won't do anything. You're just going to take that doctor's word that you have diabetes, and the only way that you're going to live is to take this insulin. Well, if a doctor tells you that, hey, your chemical imbalance in your brain is a little off, but we can give you a little something for it to balance it back out, why are we questioning that? Why are we saying, no, 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 there's nothing wrong with me, there's something wrong with you? Why can't we accept that diagnosis as well? There's nothing wrong, there's nothing different from the diagnosis of the diabetes than it is with bipolar, anxiety, depression. There's no difference in those diagnoses. So I just want people to be, to help remove the stigma, as they say, and people to feel comfortable and safe and share their stories. And hopefully someone they'll relate to that story and realize, hey, I can live with this too.
No, that's awesome, Jacqui. I call it the force multiplier effect. You're sharing lived experiences and sharing with others. Like you said, that healing is in the conversation. I love that, because you're helping someone else and then they're going to pay it forward and help someone. So we need to do more of that. And when I meet someone, I'm thinking, who do I know that can help them? It's really what drives me every morning. And it's really been a blessing to listen to you and learn from
Thank
you. And I'm so happy we met at that event. I just happened to be volunteering there. And we met. So this has been awesome. And this is on, I have a YouTube channel, NIL Insight, and Instagram and Twitter at NIL Insight. If you'd like to be a guest, you can also email me at brian3008 at icloud.com. Before we go, Jacqui, I'm also a big Raiders fan. My favorite all-time Raider going way back is Jim Plunkett. Currently, my favorite Raider is Bulldog Brock Bowers, and he looks fast on an NFL field. So before we close out, just tell us who your favorite Raider is of all time.
Oh my gosh. So we love Bo Jackson in this house. We love Ken Stabler in this house. We love Marcus Allen in this house. I have a Raider room downstairs. My current favorite, it's a tie between Max Crosby and Devontae Adams. I love Max Crosby. As a matter of fact, my nephew was at the stadium last night. He lives in Vegas, and he was at the Raiders practice, and he sent me a video of Max Crosby, and I just love him.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, he's a dominant player, but you got to love the snake, Ken Stabler.
Love
There'll
Ken
never
Stabler.
be another one like him.
Yeah, we love Ken Stabler in this house. So my mother who's 87, she has the original jerseys of gosh, she has Ken Stabler, I know she has a Marcus Allen, she has a Plunkett, she has a gosh, I can't think of all the ones.
Lyle Alzado, he played for them.
No, she doesn't have that one.
Okay.
No. And then of course we have a big picture of Al Davis downstairs.
Oh, that's cool. I hate it because that's always been one of my favorite teams, of course, Falcons, but I hate that they moved from Oakland because it's just that hardcore fans. But this has been awesome, Jacqui, and look forward to
Thank you
continued
so much for having.
conversation and wish you the best. And our listeners, I hope you picked up some great tidbits. I know you did. And thank you so much, everyone. And God bless and good evening.
Thank you so much for having me. Good night.
Thank you again. Bye bye.
Bye.